Yesterday, I had a new client come in and wanted to start a 12 series of structural integration. But one of his questions was, what is the difference between Rolfing and structural integration? Because he's heard both of these terms before, but didn't understand the difference. So Rolfing began, I'm going to say back in the 60s with Ida Rolf. And Ida Rolf was the pioneer of this modality. And as she was teaching it to her students, the students were asking, well, what do you call this method, this technique? And at the time, she didn't really have an answer. And so the students lovingly called it Rolfing after her name, right? It was just her technique. And so that's how the term kind of started to take off. As time went on, she really didn't like that term Rolfing. And so she wanted something that was more specific to what she was doing rather than honoring her. And she preferred the term structural integration. So that was her term that she wanted everyone to use. However, Rolfing, kind of the slang term for it, is still circulates in the industry. So you'll probably hear both terms. Now, there's a number of schools that teach structural integration or Rolfing. Some of these schools will teach a 10-session series, and some schools will teach a 12-session series. And so the school that I went to was called Anatomy Trains. It's directed by Tom Myers, who was one of Ida Rolf's students back in the era. And so he has taken her 10 series, but he's expanded it to 12 sessions. So 2 more sessions past what Ida had originally written into her protocol. And why did he do that is because he found a couple of sessions were just a little too rushed. And so there are 2 extra sessions, one working on our rotations in our body and one working on the shoulder girdle in the body. And he added that not only because it was rushed, but because in this era of 2021, we're spending most of our time on the computer and on our cell phones, and our bodies are doing a lot different things than what they were doing back in the 70s when the 10-session series was first written with Ida Rolf. So in order to get a more thorough treatment and not maybe so compact and aggressive in 10 sessions, we're spreading it out into 12 to kind of ease some of those areas that are going to be a little bit more restricted. So essentially they're the same. But you'll see some of the Rolfing sessions where they will still talk about that term. They're most likely doing a 10-session series where with the Anatomy Trains program, it's going to be 12. So the 2 extra sessions that are added in the Anatomy Trains structural integration sessions is the spiral line, which is done at session 4. So like I said, we work on a little bit of rotations, and it's a nice summary and shoulder session to go from the first 3 sessions, which is more superficial, and before we dive into the deep work, which starts officially, I guess, in session 5. So it's a bit of a shoulder session to bridge that gap between them and also to tackle some of the rotations. The shoulder session that is added is session 11. Initially, with the 10-session series, the rib cage and the shoulder girdle would all be done in session 10. It's a little bit rushed because there's lots to do. So it's split up now. So the rib cage all done in session 10, and then the shoulder girdle in session 11. Why would you want to do a 12-session series over opposed a 10-session series? The 10-session series will still get the work done. However, it's going to be maybe less focus on some areas of your body, especially if you're hanging over the computer or living in this era where we're in the digital age. And it also can be a lot more intensive because we're compacting all the treatment into 10 sessions rather than spreading it out and easing the tissue in the body over 12. So you can do the 10. It's going to be more intensive. That's the way the Rolfing program is. With 12 sessions, we're more geared towards working with today's bodies in the digital age that we're living in now, and our sedentary lifestyles that we have of sitting on the couch. There's more easing that is needed and more work that needs to be done as a result. And so we need those extra 2 sessions in order to get a proper job done.